not perfect. I don't always do the things that God would have me to do. The question would have to be asked, are you satisfied? Are you content with where you are with God? Is going to heaven, is getting your ticket punched and knowing that you're never going to face the white throne judgment. You will have to stand before the bema seat of Christ, but you will never face the white throne judgment. Is that enough for you? Because you got that the day that you bowed the knee, if you sincerely asked Jesus Christ to come into your life. But if you sincerely asked him to come into your life, then you ought to have something in you that wants you to become more like Jesus. You want to get ready. You want to be more like him. So when you stand in front of him, you will not be ashamed. Are you content with where you are now? With your relationship with Jesus Christ? Because I have met so many people. And I'll watch it. And I'll see them bow the knee. And I'll see tears. And I'll see them ask Jesus Christ to come into their life. And I believe they were sincerely having conviction and knowing the only way out of it, and that they're asking Jesus Christ to come into their life. I believe they're sincere. I believe they were born again. But then that seems to be enough for them. I've probably told this story before, but I'll tell it again because it's a good one. There was this mother that put her little boy to bed. And she was doing a few other things. She heard a thump. And the little boy fell out of bed. And she went up there and he was disoriented and about half asleep and wasn't hurt or nothing. And the mama says to him, well, what happened? You fell out of bed. And he said to her, I don't know. I guess I fell asleep too close to where I got in. Christians do that. They start going to sleep too close to where they were when they got saved, and change never comes in their life. Adrian Rogers said, if your religion hasn't changed your life, you need to change your religion. And I think that is true. There ought to be something in each and every one of us that wants us to change. Will we be perfect? No. But should we be getting better? Absolutely. Each and every day we ought to be moving closer to Jesus. Closer to the way he thought. Closer to the way he acted. Closer to the things that concerned him. We ought to be thinking more like him, feeling more like him, and do it more like him. Paul says that he hasn't obtained that. He hasn't obtained that. But he said, I count myself not to have apprehended, but this one thing I do. One thing is a real good phrase in the Bible, and it could mean different things at different times. And so we all have to look at this as, okay, Paul says, I do this one thing. This one thing I do. I forget what's behind. I don't worry about last week anymore. It's behind. I can't get it back. I can't change anything last week. Does he just completely forget about it? No. He learns lessons from it. He's realistic about himself. He lets the Spirit lead him and guide him. Have y'all ever tried to do something and it didn't work out right? And you said to yourself, well, boy, that's a disaster. But you learned something from it, didn't you? If nothing else, you learned how not to do it. Thomas Edison, when he was inventing the light bulb, had, I forget how many, it was up in the thousands of things, and none of those light bulbs would work. He couldn't get the right material for the filament, or he didn't get the vacuum, or the glass wouldn't last or something. And somebody asked him one time, he said, well, isn't this just all a waste? And he said, no. He said, I've learned, for how many times it was, say 200, he said, I've learned 200 ways how not to do it. And that's the way that we ought to look at too. We should not be controlled by our past. Paul wasn't controlled by his past. He was a persecutor of Christians. But he didn't let that control his life now. He could forget about that. He could move on. He could do what God had called him to do. He forgot about that. When Paul had a failure, when he was coming down from Athens, you can read about it in the book of Acts, coming down from Athens and heading to Corinth. He had just preached what I think is a phenomenal message in Athens on Mars Hill. But it didn't get a whole lot of results. And he was thinking to himself, well, how can I, and when he got to Corinth, he said, I came into your city determined to know nothing but Jesus Christ and him crucified. Paul decided he needed to give people the truth. Jesus Christ and him crucified. Paying for our sins. Setting us free from the bonds of sins. That's what he was going to give the people. So even though he didn't get many results, he learned, and he went to Corinth and he established a good church there. Had problems like all churches. But it was successful. Now let me tell you something else. Have you ever done something and it really turned out good? Well, don't sit back on your laurels. Yesterday's successes, you can't say that's going to govern what I do in the future. We have to realize that we have to take each day. Yesterday's gone, tomorrow isn't here yet. All we have is today. Don't let yesterday control what we do today. Don't think that, well, okay, I saw 2 people get saved yesterday. I don't have to worry about it today. It's just going to happen. It won't happen unless we do what God calls us to do. And God says, if you seek me, you will find me when you seek me with all your heart. Think about this. We didn't read it, but I want to read it now because the Lord's put it on my heart. He's saying, neither were I perfect. This is in the 12th verse. He says, but I follow after, if that may apprehend that for which also I am apprehended of Jesus Christ. You realize that Jesus Christ right now is still chasing after you. And Paul says, I need to chase after him just as hard as he's chasing after me. That's what I want to do. And how are we going to do that? How are we going to get closer to Jesus? Through his prayer, through his word, and through fellowship with other Christians. That's the only way that we can do it. Beloved, we're not going to be perfect in this world, but we need to try to be. We don't need to let our past control us. Not the failures in our past or the successes in our past. When you bow down the knee and ask Jesus Christ to come into your life, you got a do-over. It was a blank sheet of paper. And you could start writing your new book on that blank sheet of paper. You are not controlled by the things that happened before it. You're not controlled what happened. You can't let what you do today, since you've been saved, control what you're going to do tomorrow. Don't rest on your failures, and don't not do something because it was a success yesterday. That was Paul's one thing. One thing might be different from you. Maybe your past isn't haunting you. One thing might be different for you. What did he tell the rich young ruler that came to Jesus and said, you know, I've kept all the commandments since my youth up. And Jesus said, what? One thing thou lackest. Your possessions. Sell them. And come follow me. When Martha came to Jesus and was complaining because Mary wasn't helping her get the meal and everything ready. Where was Mary? She was sitting at the feet of Jesus, listening to his word. And what did Jesus tell Martha? It says, she has chosen the one needful thing. The one thing might be different for you than forgetting about your past. It might be changing your present. It might be spending more time in the Word. It might be not coveting something. It could be a whole number of things, but the only way you're going to find it is to chase after Jesus as much as he's chasing after you. And then he'll reveal it to you. We need to all be like the blind man in the Gospel of John, in the 9th chapter. And he finally, Pharisees, Jesus healed him and gave him sight. He went in front of the Pharisees, and the Pharisees ended up questioning him and throwing him out of the temple. But what did he tell the Pharisees? He said, this one thing I know. This one thing I know, that I was blind and now I see. What's the one thing in your life? Let me just ask you, are you satisfied with how close you are to Jesus? Are you satisfied with your relationship? Would you like to be closer to Jesus? Then I'd ask you to pray to him and ask him what that one thing is in your life. What you could do to get closer to Jesus. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father God, we bow before you. We thank you so much for your word. Lord, sometimes your word brings conviction on us. And Lord, we have to deal with that. But we know, Lord, that you always want the best for us. And when you put it on our heart to change something, Lord, it's because we will be better people after we do that. Lord, I know you speak to each individual. I know there's not a one-all fix for everything. But I ask you, Lord, to speak to us, each one individual. Talk to our hearts today, Lord, and tell us what we need to do to be closer to you, to serve you better, to be a better ambassador, and to help lead people to you. Father, these things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.